Music TV. Music TV.
Foundational Black Americans. This video is to explain who and what foundational Black Americans are. We will go over the flag and the meaning of its components. Join us on this B1 journey. A foundational Black American is any person classified as Black, who can trace their bloodline lineage back to the American system of slavery. To be designated as a FBA, at least one parent must come from a non-immigrant background in the United States of America. If a person's matrilineal and patrilineal lineage traces back to slavery in the Caribbean, then they are not considered a foundational Black American. How does a person trace their lineage back to American slavery? The process of determining if you are a descendant of foundational Black American survivors of the American slave trade is relatively easy. 5 years after formal slavery was abolished in America, the U.S. government provided detailed information about the foundational Black American population for the first time. The 1870 census provided the first detailed accounting of the Black population, and if a person can trace their lineage to the 1870 census, they are most likely a descendant of foundational Black Americans who were enslaved. The 1900 census is also a good verification resource. Because of the influx of immigrants to the U.S. at the time, the 1900 census has even more detailed information, which includes race, citizenship, nativity, meaning the birthplace of a person's parents. This type of information is important when foundational Black Americans present a reparations claim, because every potential beneficiary should be able to provide plausible and legitimate documentation about their lineage. What is the status of people with half FBA and half immigrant lineage? If you are a person classified as Black, who has one parent from an immigrant background, and another parent who can be traced to the American slave plantations, then you are considered a foundational Black American still. There is a very important caveat with this designation. An FBA individual whose non-FBA parental lineage comes from a person who immigrated to the United States after 1970, should not be considered, or looked upon as a representative or spokesperson for serious political, social, economic or judicial issues that affect foundational Black Americans collectively. The only exception to this rule is if the half-FBA individual has a verified track record of loyalty and tangible contributions to the betterment of foundational Black Americans on a grassroots level. The reason this rule applies to half-FBA people whose immigrant lineage came to the U.S. after 1970, is because the African and Caribbean immigrants before the time frame had a different collective disposition in relation to FBA. The Immigration Act of 1965 was a law that foundational Black Americans fought for in order to help Black people from Africa and the Caribbean come to the U.S., and assist FBA as reinforcement against systematic white supremacy. This was because the few Black people who were able to immigrate to the U.S. before 1965 acted as strong allies to foundational Black Americans. During the Jim Crow era in America, African and Caribbean immigrants did not have their own segregated enclaves apart from FBA. In order for them to thrive, they had to have unity with foundational Black Americans, and get on code with them against the common enemy, which was white supremacy. Because of their track record of loyalty and dedication to the fight against white supremacy during this era, many Black immigrants and half-FBA activists became respected spokespersons for foundational Black Americans. People like Jamaican immigrant Marcus Garvey, and half-FBA Malcolm X, whose father was FBA and mother was from Grenada, became icons to FBA. After 1970, things changed. J. Edgar Hoover's FBI COINTELPRO agenda was in full swing at this time, targeting and neutralizing black organizations and any forms of black solidarity with other empowerment-minded individuals. This was also the time when large groups of African and Caribbean immigrants were being allowed to come to the U.S. The government would come up with ways to use some immigrant groups as buffers against foundational black Americans. The U.S. government didn't intend on allowing another Marcus Garvey or Stokely Carmichael type of immigrant come among FBA society. Starting in the 1970s, the U.S. government implemented a benign neglect policy against foundational black Americans, while they began to prioritize allocating tangible resources to immigrant groups. Consequently, this incentivized many individuals from immigrant backgrounds to collaborate with white supremacists and sabotage progress for FBA. The danger of dual allegiances. Historically, there have been two types of half-FBA individuals, in a general sense: 1. Loyalists to their FBA lineage and heritage. 2. Anchored tethers who view FBA society as a group to exploit and ultimately replace. FBA has to currently be skeptical about certain half-FBA people who want to act as spokespersons for FBA collectively. If a person has dual allegiances to different ethnic groups and cultures, it's difficult to determine if they will look out for the best interest of FBA. Even full FBA who has a history of prioritizing other groups, religions, and sexual intersectionality over the best interests of foundational black Americans, must be viewed with reservations. In almost all Native and Aboriginal societies, when the people allowed outsiders with dual allegiances to other nations or ethnic groups to act as their representatives, this ultimately caused the decline of their societies. This happened in the 16th century when Portuguese colonizers called Loncados married into royal West African families. The mixed-race offspring from these unions who were elevated to powerful positions, often sided with the European side of their lineage, to ultimately undermine African society, and help facilitate the transatlantic slave trade. The same thing happened to many Native American tribes who allowed European colonizers to intermarry into their groups and become representatives for them. This was the beginning of the decline of their societies. In modern times, the white establishment deliberately elevates non-FBA or anchored tethers to act as spokespersons and leaders for foundational black Americans. And the results of this practice has been devastating for FBA. For this reason, foundational black Americans should only consider other qualified full FBA representatives to act as spokespersons for the collective interests of the ethnic group. FBA flag meaning. Let's start with the 3 stars. The stars represents the 3 groups who make up the ethnic group that would become foundational black Americans. The black Aboriginal people of North America. The black explorers and traders who had contact with the Americas before Columbus. The captives brought to the Western Hemisphere from Africa. The fist represents the non-stop fight that foundational black Americans have engaged in against white supremacy. This battle began on this land in 1526. The olive branches represents the historic camaraderie and peace between the black-skinned Aboriginal and the black captives on this land. The white background represents the system of white supremacy being a constant threat, and the activity on top represents foundational black Americans never surrendering to white supremacy. The red, white and blue color scheme. This pays homage to the foundational black American teen girl Grace Wisher who helped craft the current United States flag. The 9 red stripes. The stripes represents the 9 significant slave rebellions that shaped policies on this land. They are 1. San Miguel de Gualdape 1526-2. New York Slave Revolt 1712-3. Chesapeake Rebellion 1734. Stano Rebellion 1739-5. Gabriel Prosser Rebellion 1806. German Coast Uprising 1811-7. Denmark Vesey's Rebellion 1822-8. Nat Turner's Rebellion 1831-9. The Black Seminole Maroon Wars 1816-1842. This successful rebellion is commonly hidden, and that's why one of the red stripes on the flag is hidden behind the black power. So go to officialfba.com and get yours and fly it high. Also download and stream the official song for the movement Cut the Check, Reparations, by Jail Ava. Peace, blessings and love, family. B1 24/7 365 FBA will survive.
Music TV.
Many ways for you to run my cash. Cut the check, 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 cut the check.
savage. Blood on her hair, she's so tragic. Be careful for her love, she like.
Hey Riri.
Hey Rihanna, hey girl, how you doing? I'm into you like Trump's into Putin. I know that might sound a little confusing. I had to say it for my own amusement.
Count lava down, but you can't count them out, baby. Life give me lemons, I make lemon when I ain't die.
Hooping through loopholes, working round shit. All of your misconceptions, you thought I would miss my blessings.
You get down. All I wanna do is see you move it. All I wanna do is see you get down. All I wanna do is see you move it. All I wanna do is see you get down. All I wanna do is see you play this shit. You don't even know what I gave to this shit. Self-made with this shit. I slay with this shit. Been a lot of roads I done paved with this shit. Look, see I don't play with this shit. You don't even know what I gave to this shit.
Big dog tryna bring it back. I'ma slide in the way, bring it back, back, back. Let a nigga tap, tryna bring it back, 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 tryna bring it back, 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 tryna bring it back,
I'm always moving fast, I be running up a check, I be getting at the bag. I don't mean no disrespect, I ain't coming at you bad, but shawty gotta go, cause you sounded to me fast. Probably be here all day if it wasn't for you. I don't mean to see you get down. All I wanna do is see you move it. All I wanna do is see you get down. All I wanna do is see you move it. All I wanna do is see you get down. All I wanna do is see you move it. All I wanna do is industry changing, your content strange, but I'm good, and I'm straight. I'm from the land of the 10,000 legs. I know you wish you could, but some can't. I learned from my mistakes and I done felt all the breaks. Learn to cut the grass real fast for the snakes. Learn to give a little bit more.
Music